Let me tell you one thing, and I'm not proud of it. When I first got into product design, it took me some time until I was consciously mindful of accessibility. Not that I didn't care or that I allowed things like this to happen, but I just wasn't aware of the guidelines and the best practices that I was meant to follow. But over the years, I not only got to learn these things, but I also became a relentless advocate for accessibility across all the products that I got to work on. That's why I decided to come here today and share the accessibility guide I wish I had when I got started in the product design. But for that, we're gonna need some tea. But first of all, why is accessibility so important in product design? Accessibility ensures that a product can be used by anyone, by people of all abilities. That's going to consider specific cognitive and physical conditions as well as situational needs. So let's say the person goes to a place with a lot of sunlight or a lack of it, or they cannot reach the device because they're driving. Accessibility adds this extra layer of thoughtfulness to the user experience. And it's a goal that we should all strive for when we're designing. But in order for us to talk about the actionable things we can do to ensure accessibility in product design, we need to talk about inclusive design. So inclusive design is a pack of design methodologies that are going to focus on understanding the user needs and enabling people of all backgrounds and abilities to interact with a product. Inclusive design generates inclusive design patterns, which are the actionable things that are going to allow that the product is used by anyone. So the first inclusive design pattern that we gotta talk about is contrast. Color is one of the most common topics when we talk about accessibility because it's where a common mistake is made. So when it comes to color, low contrast combinations present issues for users with low vision, who are colorblind or with low color sensitivity, which is pretty common as we age, and also users who are neurodiverse. Correcting this mistake is super easy though. If you use Figma, use the contrast or star plugin and simply compare the color of the background with the color of the foreground. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, says that text must have a ratio of at least 4.5 to 1 for normal text and 3 to 1 for large text. Non-text elements such as UI components and graphics must have a contrast ratio of at least 3 to 1. Another enhancement that you can do in this world of contrast is for you to always provide the light mode version of a product as well as the dark mode. I have 2 videos about this specific topic if you're not sure or confident on how to design dark mode interfaces. Our second inclusive design pattern is font or type. It's crucial that a legible type is chosen and that you also give users the option to increase the size of the text if they want. This helps accommodate users across a wider age range and those with specific visual conditions, making the reading experience easier for them. Inclusive design pattern number 3, labeled forms. Forms are a pretty regular common element that we design as they're used to input and collect information from our users. Over the years, in this attempt to create a cleaner and more polished UI, we often see the label of the input field being placed inside the input field as a placeholder. However, this approach can be very impractical for many users. It increases the cognitive load because the users are going to have to remember what type of information they were filling inside each input field, making it difficult for them to quickly scan the page and confirm if they have entered the correct information. This also poses a challenge for visually impaired users who rely on screen readers, because in many cases, if the label is replaced, the screen reader cannot read the label once the field has been completed. Another commonly misused practice is the implementation of disable states, where users cannot interact with a portion of the UI. This is often applied to buttons, so they are grayed out and inactive. So if you try clicking on it, nothing's gonna happen. The issue with disable state is that it provides no feedback to the user, so it's very frustrating because they're not sure what they need to complete in order to proceed. And also, disable buttons often provide poor contrast, failing to meet accessibility standards and making it difficult for all users. I found a very good article on best practices and alternatives when it comes to disable state. I'm leaving this article in the description as well. And here you have it, your first accessibility guide for you to get started with product design, making sure that you're serving all users. I brought 4 inclusive design patterns, but there is an endless world of more and more patterns that we should be aware of and consider when designing. If you would like a part 2 of this video, let me know in the comments so I can have that ready for you. And before you go, make sure to check out this video here where I list 5 UI mistakes that you don't want to make. I'll see you there and happy designing. Bye.